Hello and welcome everyone. Good to see you. Hope everyone's doing well. Let us know where you're tuning in from, how you doing today. I am here today with our guest, Adam Bird. Adam, thanks for joining us. Appreciate you being here.
Hey, thank you for having me.
And we're going to be jumping into some work with Adam today. Before we do that, I do want to take a look at the schedule and let you all know what's coming up. We got a full day of streams coming up today. So after us is going to be the Illustrator Daily Creative Challenge with Andrew. We have packaging design with Aaron, the XD Creative Challenge with Andrea, the Draw Along stream with Kyle Webster, and we are ending the day with the Rework It segment with both Jesus and Claddy. So definitely stick around, check that out. There's a lot of good streams coming up. I just wanted to say hi to everyone in the chat. I see a lot of people in there. We got Cody, Armad, Paloma, Sean, Biola. What is up, everyone? Welcome on in. Good to see you. And there's Eric, Harriet, Elemental. That is quite the name. I like that one. Elemental Eternomancer. That's how I'm going to say it. Mia, welcome on in, everyone. Hope you're all doing well. Glad you're joining us. Adam, thanks again for being here. Hope you're doing well. I want, just to give a little intro to everyone if they don't know who you are. Maybe tell them about the kind of work you do and what you'll be working on today.
Yeah, no problem. Hi everyone. Thank you for having me. My name's Adam and I'm a photographer from England. I'm based in the West Midlands, but I'm pretty much up and down the UK for my photo shoots. So I'm all over the place, but basically I'm from the West Midlands in England and my style of work is very fantasy based. So I'm inspired by fairy tales, nature, and can I bring up some of my photos on the screen? Let me bring up my website. So here's a few of my favorite photos that I've made. And yeah, I guess why I love fairy tales so much is that it essentially allows me to be a kid again. So for my work, I often shoot on location. So usually I'm either running through the woods with my camera, I'm climbing through a castle, or I'm just ordering like a bunch of weird props off the internet. And it pretty much just allows me to be a big kid. And yeah, I guess with my work, it's kind of, I love to create a world to escape into. And I think especially with the year that we've had, we all need that magic right now. And that's what I like to create either with a camera or after on in Photoshop.
Yeah, definitely. When I first saw your work, I instantly get that kind of fantasy sort of whimsical feel, which I think is really cool. I didn't know, I was kind of curious if a lot of these were shot on location or if it was a sort of like compositing of different stock you found, but that's really cool.
Yeah, I'd say that 99.9% would be shot on location, but I always edit in either my own stock, so I'd take photos of objects on location, or I would find stock online beforehand, and then I'd kind of match the lighting while I was shooting, just to kind of blend it all together.
Yeah, that's great. So what are you working on today?
So today I'm working on, let me find the picture. So it's this first one here. So I'm going to be showing everybody how you can create a magical photo with kind of starting off from a basic image. So the model and the photo that I originally used, there was no moon, no stars, no smoke, no nothing. And I kind of just want to show people how you can take a normal picture and give it that magical feel just with editing.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I really do like how you add this sort of like, I mean, it is very fantasy themed. It's all photo, but it's almost like painterly in a way. And it has this very kind of magical, whimsical feel. So it's really neat to kind of see how you fit that into each image.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I love fairy tales in general. So most of my pieces are inspired by stories. This one in particular, I was sent a dress by a designer. and her dresses are incredible. And all of the detail on the dress had stars and moons. And then for me, I was like, right, I need to create an epic image with like just revolving around that to kind of give it that storytelling element. I did make a moon prop to use on the day, but it was terrible. I did try, it looked awful. So I was like, right, I'm going to have to Photoshop this and I can make it work.
Oh, that's funny. Did you spend a long time kind of working on that before you realized it's probably not the best direction?
Yeah, I mean, oh, it was terrible. I painted it and I was like, right, this is going to look cool. And it was just a
Uh-huh.
case of sometimes you don't know until you're on location and you've got everything there. I was like, right, this just isn't working. It didn't look so epic. And I was like, right, I can make this work in editing afterwards. It's fine. So that's kind of what I'm going to show today is just how you can kind of make a story out of a picture, which might just seem a bit bland to look at first. But yeah, just to kind of give it that extra element to it, I guess.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so shall I pull it up in Photoshop to show you guys?
Yeah, for sure. And also, everyone, I think Cody posted in the chat, but definitely check out Adam's photography at his website, adambirdphotography.com. I think she put the link to both his Instagram and the website in chat.
Yeah, thank you. Let me pull this up into Photoshop. So this is the before picture. And I was really happy with this just as kind of like a standalone portrait. But I feel like for my kind of portfolio work, it just didn't fit in. Like it didn't have that kind of magic element. And there's a few reasons that while I'm going to be using stock pictures to edit this, the main focus was like I had to make sure that I got everything right while I was shooting. So the background was just like a rocky cliff. And the reason that I chose to shoot there was because I knew that the background was going to be quite dark. And that meant that with editing, I could easily overlay stars and like use different blend modes to kind of blend it in together. Also, I really like the pose of the model, and I just feel like by not having the model look directly at the camera, it kind of makes you look like you're watching a scene from a movie, and it just makes you feel a little bit more like, oh, what's going to happen and what's the model looking at, rather than just a fashion image like looking straight through the lens. So yeah, I might as well get started, and I'm going to show you guys what I'm going to be doing. So I guess this is how I'd start off with the image, and I kind of look at it and I kind of think, what is the best thing I can do to this picture to make it look better? And the first thing would be to add the moon. So first of all, I need to make the picture a lot bigger just so I can fit the moon in. So to do that, I'm just going to use the crop tool. So I'm going to go over here and get the crop tool. And I'm not really being too careful at the moment. I kind of just want to make sure, let me just pull that down. I kind of just want to make sure that while I'm doing this, I've just got enough room to edit in the moon afterwards.
Do you typically have a certain like aspect ratio or sizes you stick to, or does it vary a lot?
Yeah, I guess the main ratio that I use is the kind of 6:4 ratio. That's because a lot of my work is posted on Instagram, and the way that I feel is that the most impactful images on Instagram would be through portrait, because you can make them bigger, and it just kind of displays better on people's phones when they're looking at them. And
Yeah.
so oh, sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say it's really interesting how often artists and designers and everything consider social media nowadays, because when you're posting on different platforms, it is, a consideration that sometimes you have to think about.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like with me for social media, Instagram's like the main platform that I use. So it is important for me to kind of have pictures which fit well on there. I've had pictures that I've posted on there and they look great on like a desktop. And when I put them on Instagram, it kind of crops out all the good stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I've kind of made sure to myself, this is the kind of ratio that I like to shoot in. Okay. So now I've got room for the moon. I guess the only other thing that I normally do with a lot of my pictures is I like to kind of make the model a little bit taller. For this, it would just be to make the dress fall a little bit nicer and to kind of make it a little bit more elegant. So the way I'm going to do that is really simple. I'm just going to get my marquee tool and I'm going to select a big area of the dress. And then I'm going to use my transform tool, which is Command T on a Mac. And I'm just going to pull that down just slightly. And it's not that you don't have to do that, but that's something that I do a lot in my work.
Hmm.
So yeah, so now I've made the model taller, I'm going to go through the stock images that I use for this picture.
And Marcia in chat did have a question. She said, do you do anything in Lightroom first?
Oh, so I do use Lightroom, but I use it afterwards. So Lightroom for me is my color toning process. So I will go through and edit all the color tones. I'd add kind of alter the shadows and highlights of the image, I guess. But I wouldn't use Lightroom first necessarily. I would normally use it afterwards.
Interesting. Is that at all to get like a cohesive look to your work as like a body of work?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I do edit colors and tones sometimes in Photoshop. But for me, I just kind of find the interface of Lightroom amazing. And it's just something that I've used so often. I guess I'm used to it.
Mm-hmm.
And I have like a bunch of presets that I've made before. And it's a kind of like, it's a safe way for me. So I apply that and then kind of adjust them to kind of match the picture. So it does fit in my portfolio then, I guess.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, this is a stock picture that I got of a moon online. And the reason I didn't want to use an actual moon was because I felt like the stock one would fit in better with my picture. Because a lot of the moons, they kind of have like a very blurry edge. And I was like, with this, at least I can edit it in. And it's going to fit really well with the model. The only thing I don't like with this is because it is a prop chair, it's got this weird thing behind. So I'm going to manually select it. So the way I would do that is I'd go to my pen tool here and I'd just zoom on in. And then with the pen tool, it's really easy. So you just click and then you click and drag on the next point, just like this. And then you can go around the whole moon.
Now, is this the image of the moon that or the prop of the moon that you created?
No,
Okay.
no, it's probably best if I don't show the prop I created. It was terrible. I wish it looked like this.
I mean, it's always interesting because a lot of times you don't really know like how a process is going to work out until you try it. And it's always kind of one of those things where it's like, okay, lesson learned. I kind
Yeah,
of know for next
definitely.
time.
Yeah, 100%. Well, I thought it looked great until I looked at the pictures afterwards. I was like, no, it definitely
Oh,
didn't work very well.
interesting. So you kind of had to see it in context.
Yeah, and I was just like, it just wasn't epic enough. I mean, the one I made was probably, oh, it's a quarter of the size of this, what I'm going to edit. So no, I would guess with this, it just means that I can edit the colors a lot easier as well, because I painted a really weird texture on my moon. I have to see if I can find it.
Do you typically make props? Is that like a part of your process to any degree?
Yeah, sometimes. I mean, I love making props. It's just something that I don't feel like I've got the skill in. For me, like I have made some props before. So I made like a circus podium and I'm so proud of it. I'll see if I can quickly find it actually on my website here. So I made this podium on this picture before. I made that myself.
Oh,
And
nice.
I'm so happy. And I've used it again. So sometimes when I make props, I do use it over and over again in different contexts. So just like on this picture here, with the wind up key. But usually, no, I'm not that talented making my own props. I either buy them off eBay or I will just edit stock pictures in.
Do you have like a storage unit somewhere just chock full of props?
Yeah, my parents' loft. I've kind of taken over with everything up there. And it's nice for me because I can kind of order all these props and I just store them up there. And if I don't feel necessarily inspired to make something, I can just go up there, have a look through. And because I've got so much stuff, it's like, wow, like there's so many possibilities of photos that I can create from what I already have. But then I guess that's the thing with Photoshop as well, is that I try not to limit myself with just what I have in front of me. And because I know that with Photoshop, I can kind of create those magical worlds afterwards.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's interesting just to kind of think, that you have this collection of props and stuff that kind of inspire ideas on their own. That's super awesome that your parents are able to kind of give you a place to store them too.
Oh, I'm so lucky. I'm so grateful for it.
We also had a couple questions in chat. some people were talking about the locations being really beautiful that you shoot at. And Sam asks, how do you find the locations? Are these like areas near you, or do you kind of travel at all to find any of these?
Yeah, I say it goes hand in hand. I definitely do go and travel. For me, most of my work is shot on location. So location is probably the most important thing that I always think of. Um, but yeah, I think a really good way that I found locations is going on Instagram, and you can search for places. And by doing that, it kind of, you can see recent pictures. So if you're going to shoot somewhere, I don't know, in spring, it's going to look a lot different than when people have took pictures there in winter. So that's a really good tip for me. And I love, if I'm ever looking for locations, I'll look on Instagram at the places, and you can see what it looks like recently.
Hmm.
But other than that, I have found some locations really close to home. So I found like a really cool castle, like ruins, like 10 minutes from my house, which I had no idea about. So that I kind of just go for dog walks, and when I walk my dog, I kind of stumble across these locations, and then yeah, I guess it goes from there.
Oh, that's great. Unfortunately, where I live, there is no chance of stumbling upon some ruins or castles or anything. So,
Oh no, you never know. I didn't think there was. I didn't think there was any chance. So I was amazed when I found it.
yeah, that's really cool.
So I've just selected the moon with the pen tool, and I didn't mention it then, but I did feather the selection just by 2 pixels, just so it didn't look so cut out by the way I selected it. So now I've got the moon, I'm just going to copy it. So I'm pressing Command C on my keyboard and then Command V to paste. So yeah, we have the moon in the picture. So there's step one. um, so what I normally like to do is I bring the opacity down here. That just means it's quite good in getting the sizes, and you can kind of have a play around and see what it will look like. So let's just bring that up.
So you said you feathered the edges a bit. Is that just so
Yeah.
it has like a little bit more of a natural look and not like a razor sharp edge?
Yeah, definitely. I'm going to be adding smoke and kind of blending it in a bit more later on. But definitely, I don't want it to look like I've just cut it out and pasted it on. I want it to kind of look a lot more natural. It doesn't at the moment, but it will do. Trust me, it will work. Um, so yeah, so I'm just using the transform tool to kind of have a look at how it's positioning in the picture. So I'll just have a little play around with that and see what looks best.
So how much of your work is just like taking the pictures, and how much more involved is it than that? Because I imagine that I know with a lot of photography, there's like styling and the costume selections and makeup and whatever it may be. How much of this is done by you, and how much does like the model kind of do that?
I guess I'm like a one-man band. Like I kind of like to be in control of everything that I do. So I would normally source the dress, I would source the location and kind of the concept. And I'm lucky enough that models do trust me and want to work with me in that way. Usually, I guess what I do is I would say, here's my concept, here's the image that I want to shoot for me. And I would then sometimes just shoot some kind of portraits or headshots the model could use just in their portfolio. Because like as great as this is, it might not work in models' portfolios for everything. So it's always good to have like a variety of different shots.
Definitely. Is costume design something you feel like you think a lot about, or that you have much experience with? I believe on your website it says that you have some background a little bit in fashion as well.
Yeah. So when I actually went to college and studied photography. And a lot of the stuff we do was fashion orientated. So I went to a lot of fashion shows, and I shot like a bunch of different things revolving working with different designers and stuff like that. But then it was kind of just working in a studio. And that's where I've kind of took it on my own and just like, I want to, for me, studios are a little bit intimidating, and it's just kind of a backdrop and that's it. Whereas I love shooting outside on location just because it gives me so much more to work with. But yeah, fashion, I always try and choose outfits that complement the location as well. Or if not, I just love dresses which are quite plain, and it just kind of gives me the ability to work with.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, I think the costume in this one especially adds like a really big element of kind of the narrative and the feel, that sort of fantasy fairy tale feel.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, as soon as I saw the dress in this, I was like, it needs to have a moon because of all the details here of the stars and the moon. I was like, it would be so epic to
Yeah.
kind of have a story that revolves around the moon. And I guess the dress inspired this whole shoot, to be honest.
Hmm.
Cool. So that's probably about the size that I want. The only thing that I would say with this is because I'm going to be cutting off a lot of this here, so it's going to be hidden when I remove it afterwards. I would rather this end of the moon be a little bit further down. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to select it with the marquee tool and use the transform tool again, just to kind of move it over and just a little bit further down here. Press OK. There we go. And that's okay that I've done that just because I will be getting rid of it after. I do have a very weird few Photoshop techniques that I'm used to, but I'll just roll with it.
Yeah, I think everyone kind of has like a sort of workflow that they're comfortable with and certain tools that they really like using.
Yeah, definitely. And I'd say the transform tool for me is one of my favorites, and layer masks as well. That's what I use quite a lot.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I'm one of my go-tos is definitely the warp tool, just to move things and budge things. I know a lot of people like liquefy. I don't know if you ever use that, but it seems like something that would definitely work for me. I don't know. I always go for warp.
Yeah, I like the warp tool as well. I'd probably use liquefy more just because that's what I'm used to, but I do normally use warp if I'm kind of pushing things into place and blending stock in. That's when I'd more be likely to use warp in that case.
I also love the contrast in this photo. The way the dress pops off that dark background works so well.
Yeah, well, I just thought when I was shooting, it'd be so much easier to have a dark background to work with. And that way it just means that I can overlay stuff on afterwards. So what I've just done there is I've selected the darkest tone in the background here just to fill everything with. And this is where we're going to cut the model out from. And the reason that I've chose just a dark tone in the background rather than just solid black is to help it blend well again. But I don't want it to look like I've just whacked on a paintbrush and colored it in. So what I'm going to do is add some texture. So I've gone to the noise here, and I normally just have a play around with what looks good. But really for this, I feel like we can keep it quite small. And I normally keep it on Gaussian and monochromatic as well. Lovely. So now I've got the kind of dark background ready. What I normally do with this is add a layer mask and invert that. And then this way I can literally paint on and draw on all of the background for the model.
Also, just to everyone in chat, a little heads up. In just over an hour or so, I think Cody mentioned in chat, we will be going over the daily creative challenges. And if anyone's not familiar with the daily creative challenges, we have them for a few different pieces of software. We have them for Photoshop, XD, we have it for Illustrator and Premiere. But basically every day for 2 weeks, Monday through Friday, you can check it out. And we have a host that's going over pretty much a different technique or method each day. You can check out that bit.ly link right there. It's the capital PS and then Discord. And we have a Discord community where you can share, where you can get feedback, where you can kind of chat with the community and connect there. And that's what we'll be reviewing in just a bit, in about an hour or so. And by the way, if you do want more information on that, at the very top of the chat, you can click the challenge tab and it'll bring you to the right links. So
Awesome.
do you tend to paint these out manually, and or how much of that is kind of like using selection tools?
Yeah, so sometimes I do actually use a Wacom tablet. And the reason for that is because I like to feel like I'm almost painting a picture. So it kind of depends on, sometimes it depends on how I feel. I mean, I might start off with just erasing this and painting it on how I see. If not, I will literally just go through with the pen tool. That would be my other favorite select tool. And I will go through and just select everything.
Okay.
I guess
Yeah,
that depends how I feel on the day. I like switching through both.
Are you using a tablet right now?
Yeah, I'm using a tablet. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say the way the strokes are going, it seems very hard to control that with a mouse in that way.
Yeah, definitely. It's quite hard to get used to at first, but I feel like as soon as I kind of just played around with it and kept using the Wacom tablet, I was like, well, this is great. And it just means that you're almost painting a picture rather than clicking.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, it just it like you said, it does take a bit of getting used to. I think
Yeah.
that's been the case for everyone I know who's used a tablet. It's like the first week or even few weeks, the disconnect between looking at the screen and drawing down below on a tablet is very strange. But I think if you stick with it, if anyone hasn't used a tablet before, you definitely pick up on it after a little while.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I feel like for me as well, it just kind of speeds up my workflow a lot more. It's just, I don't know, it's kind of relaxing for me anyway. It's almost like painting a picture.
Yeah, definitely. Also, we have a question from Sam that says, do you have any tips on how to erase the hair so it doesn't lose any detail? I'm not sure if they mean like how to mask it out.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. I'll go through the hair actually in a little bit, but what I normally do with the hair is I will use a different brush size, or I use a lower opacity brush just to kind of paint through the hairs myself. Or I have done in the past, I have just drew on hair with the brush tool, and just kind of, and that's when the Wacom tablet does come into hand because you can really draw it really neatly. Whereas like with a mouse, you are kind of stuck with how you're clicking, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. Do you ever use like the select subject function or the refine edge brush tool or anything like that?
Yeah, I definitely use the refine edge. And I guess to me, it's kind of like I look at a picture and think what would be suit best for it. So I normally use the select tools if it is a case of just being on a very dark background. So it might work here actually. Yes, I normally go for the quick select tool. And because this is so bright, let me just click back on this layer. So it probably does a pretty good job anyway. Yeah, it does. It does a really good job. I'm just going over.
Yeah, it definitely helps when you have some nice contrast in a photo like in this one for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's why with the background as well, I love shooting on dark backgrounds because it makes it so much easier with editing. See, so yeah, that's done a really good job with all of that. I probably will manually do these bits down here just because it might be a bit difficult. But I will probably use this actually.
Now, was this a costume, the dress that you provided, or was this hers?
Oh, so I provided this. So it was sent to me by a model, not by a model, sorry. It was sent to me by a designer called Shot Renette. And basically I've done a few different shoots with this dress. And yeah, I just tried to create different concepts for each one.
Yeah, it fits this image really well. I love like now that you zoomed in, it's great to see all the kind of intricate detail in there. It's
Yeah.
very, very whimsical. So I noticed when I was looking through your gallery, a lot of your work has kind of it's like an overcast lighting almost. It has a very consistent type of lighting and type of mood that creates. Is that something that's very intentional? Is that uh, a lighting you try to stick to, or is it just
Yeah.
kind of something that happens naturally?
Oh, I wish it happened naturally. It'd be so great. No, I love shooting on overcast days. So for me, like when you said earlier about having a painting kind of quality, that for me is the goal. So when I look at old paintings, it was all with natural light. So that's for me something I do try and replicate. So I will normally shoot on an overcast day if I'm lucky, if not, I will try and shoot when the sun's set, or just when the sun's set and everything's really flat and soft light. And yeah, it definitely is intentional. I hate shooting in direct sunlight. It is something I'm working on. But for me, if I could choose an overcast day, shade, or just when the sun is set, it'd be amazing.
Yeah, I hear that a lot with photography is overcast days are pretty ideal. And I mean, I love the look you get. I paint myself, so that kind of painterly look or sort of like classic art sort of look to it is really great.
Yeah, I've seen some of your paintings, by the way. They're
Oh,
amazing.
oh, thank you.
They're so good.
Yeah, I always love this type of lighting, and it's just, I mean, it creates so much contrast, but it just has such a classic look to it that I really like. And I think
Yeah,
that's my favorite type of lighting to paint as well.
yeah, definitely. I just think for me, I have tried. I used to actually when I first started shooting, I did try. I literally put a flash on for every shoot that I did. I always tried and shot with studio lighting because that's what I just thought was best. I thought if you're using studio lighting, that makes you professional, that makes the pictures look better. But to me, it was just like with my style and the kind of vibe that I was going for, it just didn't work as well. Um, and yeah, I just think natural light is the best kind of lighting, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, lighting is so huge in like kind of determining the mood and the look and the feel of a piece. So I
Yeah,
think
definitely.
lighting's definitely one of those key things I think photographers and painters both really focus on.
Yeah, I mean, photography is essentially painting with light. So if you can choose your own light source, that is the best way to go. And yeah, it's definitely intentional, but I wish it was just overcast every day.
Yeah, I figured it's got to be tricky with photography because you don't get to just dictate that. You kind of have to be at the right place at the right time and everything. So that could definitely be
Yeah,
tricky.
definitely. I think a lot goes into planning. And I think as long as I mean, sometimes I've waited until it's been a summer's day and I've waited till really late at night to shoot. But that's for me is when you get the best results.
Yeah. And Peter was asking about the brush method of masking this out. Um, I think you already talked about that a little bit, but is it kind of something that you feel like gives you more control over the other tools?
Yeah, I don't really like it automatically masking. I mean, as great as it is, it definitely does just feel like it gives me more control.
Hmm.
And it almost feels like, yeah, again, like I'm painting the picture. And that is a really big thing for me, is just to be in control and I can select myself what is going to be in the picture and what isn't.
Definitely, yeah. I love how diffused overcast light is. Cody says in chat. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'll
me
wait for
too.
golden hour.
100%.
Yeah, I mean it's like with painting for me, I very rarely do like a direct sunlight. I mean sometimes narratively it makes sense, but
Yeah.
there's just something about this like soft look that always just reminds me of classic paintings.
Yeah, definitely. So do you not like direct light yourself?
I think it's interesting. I really do enjoy um, really intense, cool, and warm contrasts that you see a lot of times with direct light.
Yeah.
So if you have like a lighting hitting someone's face outside, and it's this really warm light, and you get almost kind of much cooler, almost bluish tones in the shadows, or if you know that when there's like a sunset in a mountain setting and it's just
Yeah,
hitting the
totally.
peak, it's just that color temperature I think is really cool. So in those ways I do really like it,
Yeah.
but I something about painting just more diffuse soft lighting is a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
I try to mix it up though. I'm always trying to get out of the comfort zone a little bit to try different things, but that's there's definitely a sort of mood I like. I actually was able to travel to Edinburgh a few years ago, and we did like this sort of nature little trip that went through Glencoe in the Highlands,
Oh,
and
okay, yeah.
I don't know why, but very frequently when I'm thinking about painting a scene, I think about the lighting there because it wasn't very rainy, but it was, misting here and there. And it was this very diffused, subdued lighting. And just that with the landscape was like
It's
something I think about a
beautiful.
lot now.
Yeah, I mean, I've never been to Glencoe before. I've got a friend who visits there quite a lot, and it's still like on the bucket list for me.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I just think there's something about the mood as well that it gives off.
Yeah, I think it's that lighting. Like, I live in Southern California, so it's very frequently quite sunny here. But
Well, that'd be a
whenever,
nightmare for me.
yeah, it would be a lot more tough. But like when we went, a couple places in Scotland and Ireland and stuff, it seemed like there was. I don't know if it was just the time of the year, but the weather was like that a lot more. And even when I've been to San Francisco, it's a little bit more of that diffuse kind of. There's a layer of clouds overhead, and
Yeah.
something about that. Like even when I'm at those places, I just like it because I like that lighting.
Yeah, 100%. And I was watching films recently, and I was watching scenes where it was just overcast constantly, and I'm like, do they just wait for overcast days? And like, how do they always have the best kind of lighting like outdoors? And everything, like I do watch films quite a lot for inspiration, like the cinematography, and it is kind of like a lot of the films that I'm drawn to, it does have that kind of moody, cloudy vibe to it.
Yeah, definitely. Hello, Richard. Welcome on in. Marcia asks, in the brush settings, I see smoothing 10%. What does it mean?
Oh, with the smoothing. So it just basically means that the brush isn't so harsh. And to me, like if I was shooting, let me see if I change this here. Oh, with the smoothing up here. Oh yeah. No, right. So it
Smoothing,
just
yeah.
went, yeah. So when I'm brushing it, let me show you. So that is what happens when I put it on 100%. And if I put it back to where it was on 10, this is it. And for me, I kind of just like the feeling of painting it. I don't really like to have so much of the smoothing on it, just because I feel like it kind of restricts how I'm painting.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, for me, I just prefer the smoothing to be at 10%, but that's a personal choice.
Yeah, it's definitely worth checking out. I think it was Marcia who was asking that. If you turn it all the way up and you make these big strokes, you'll kind of see it's much more slowed down, but it smooths out your
Yeah,
strokes. And I think it may have been a response. I know long ago people used this add-on or this plugin, I forget what it was, called Lazy Nizumi. And it was essentially, so I know it was really popular with like comic artists and stuff who do big sweeping pen strokes and everything for inking.
yeah.
And it kind of smooths that out. And I I remember sometime after smoothing came out, and I was like, oh, okay, so now it's kind of built in. So I think a lot of people like it for that, but
Yeah, I would just experiment with it and just see what you prefer. For me, I like it to be quite minimal, just so that I've got that kind of manual control over it. But no, it's definitely a good tool, but I think it just depends on what you're using it for.
yeah, absolutely. It's always good just to tweak tools, put it like around the bottom, put it in the middle, put it in the top, and just kind of see how it reacts.
Yeah, definitely.
But I'm the same way. I think mine is actually at 10%. Um,
Oh,
I don't know.
awesome.
I don't know if I notice a big difference when it's at 0, but I think that's almost like a default thing. But yeah, it's the same thing. I like having like unrestricted movement, even when I'm drawing, and it
Yeah,
kind of picks up like the shakiness of your hand sometimes. Like I
yeah,
even kind of like that sketchy feel. So really just depends on what you're going for.
yeah, definitely.
Also, welcome on in to Ferry and Mayane. Is that how you say it? Mayane in the chat? Hope everyone's doing well. Thanks for joining us. Have you gotten to play with any of the new Photoshop features that were announced and released during Adobe Max at all? I was curious if you've been able to look at any of those, or if you use any of them in your workflow or anything like that.
Not yet. I have had a look. With everything happening over here in the UK at the moment, we're having a lockdown from tomorrow.
Mm.
So I haven't really had any images to shoot or edit. But there's been the new sky replacement filter, hasn't there?
Yeah. Photoshop
Um,
had some interesting ones. Sky replacement was definitely one.
yeah, I mean, it's definitely something that I would look at using because I do that a lot. But I haven't tried it yet.
Yeah, that was the one I was kind of curious about with your work. And I was actually going to ask you, is editing like the environment or the sky something you frequently do, or do you try to keep it pretty close to what you shot?
Yeah, normally I would edit it quite a lot. So with the sky, well, actually, no, not quite a lot. I would always try and keep it. similar to the environment that it should be. So I wouldn't, if it was looking like a bright looking image, I wouldn't edit in a dark sky and kind of try and make that work. But I'm definitely normally, I shoot my own stock of clouds and other things like that, and I would overlay that on just if the sky is a bit blown out or if it just doesn't look as interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sky is a huge thing, I think, for like mood and look to an image. So when I see people do sky replacements in photos, a lot of times it's like night and day.
Yeah, no, I haven't done that before. It'd be cool though. I haven't done it before though.
Oh yeah, they're mentioning in chat neural filters. I don't know if you got to see those, but there's some really cool effects with the neural filters.
No, I haven't seen it yet. No.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like AI and technology is just getting so crazy and advanced. The things that it can do, it's just like, okay, wow, that's how even. It's a lot of it. Like I remember from the sort of portraiture stuff is like turning a head to the side a little bit, like changing the angle of it.
Oh, that's
Another one,
crazy.
another one that was really crazy was like taking just someone who's making a straight face, no expression, and making them smile. And there's like actually I think teeth and stuff that shows. So it's
Oh, that's crazy. That's a little scary.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
cool though.
I think a lot of reactions were like, wow, this is I don't know. It's
Oh,
very
that's awesome.
very sci-fi type of stuff. And I mean, you can play with the sliders and everything. There's a lot of things you can kind of tweak. Aging is another thing. You can crank up the aging slider to see how someone looks like really old.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
Oh, no way. That's crazy.
So it's definitely some pretty wild options. I mean, it's funny because you can always like crank the sliders all the way up. And a lot of times when you do that with any sort of settings in Photoshop, it starts to get, almost a little bit kind of bizarre.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it really depends on the photo because I've seen some ones where it looks like really natural, some where it looks something's a little off, but it's like it's cool because you can kind of play with those as much or as little as you want to with the sliders and just go nuts. But definitely interesting new features.
Yeah, definitely. I guess for me, I kind of try and keep things as natural as possible. So when Photoshop brought out the feature with liquify, so it would select people's faces and you could edit things that way, to me that was mind-blowing. I was like, this is crazy. But again, I guess it's like a manual control thing, so I still just do it all myself and I will manually move things along if I have to.
Yeah, it's nice to be able to kind of choose how much you want to let Photoshop take the wheel and how much you want to just do it manually and kind of control every aspect of it.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I guess it kind of worked well for this because if I turn this off, I've actually painted over this part of the dress here, just because I know that when I put Grace to sit on the moon, stand on the moon, that part of the dress wouldn't necessarily be there in real life. So that is why I manually kind of masked that out there.
Yeah, definitely. The perspective would change a bit, or the landscape that she's on.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm just selecting little bits here and just brushing over it just to kind of make it a little bit quicker, just so I can kind of have a rough guide of where I'm going. So yeah, I'm about halfway, almost halfway through doing this. So it will take a little bit of time. But for me, just masking out the model is probably the most important part, just to make everything look real.
Yeah, for sure. And it's like the focal point of the whole piece. So
yeah,
it's
definitely.
really something you want to kind of get looking how you want it to. Also, Max, welcome on in. Max in the chat says, I love your artwork. I'm a fan.
Oh, no way. Thank you. That's really nice.
Robert in chat says, I have tested with my own sky photos. Works very well. Yeah, that's great. Like they have this kind of stockpile of stock images you can use for the sky replacement, but you can also, of course, put in your own. So it's definitely great for photographers if you want to kind of get a collection of awesome skies. I think a lot of photographers do that anyway. When you see a cool sky, take a picture. So it's really neat to have a sort of library that you can use that easily.
And does it do that through the blend modes? Is that how it kind of works?
For the blend modes?
Yeah, so normally if I'm editing a sky on my photo, I will add a picture of a sky that I've taken, and I will just change the layer blend mode to something like screen or multiply to blend it in. Or is this feature like a whole different plugin?
Oh, so the sky replacement basically masks out the sky. So it creates a mask for you, and it
Oh,
just
amazing.
essentially sticks a sky, in another layer under that. Um,
Wicked.
which is great because you can edit the mask after the fact. It's kind of like when you use um, select and mask type of thing. It'll do it auto for you, but then you can always sort of tweak it if you don't like exactly what it did. So
Yeah.
gives some good flexibility in that way. So I was curious with this very sort of like painted style that we've been talking about. How long did it take you to find your style? Was this something that has developed over a long time, or have you always sort of gone for this look?
Yeah, it's definitely took me a long time. So when I started, I guess, kind of being a little bit serious with photography when I was a teenager. And I'm 23 now. So when I started off, I was taking pictures of babies, cars, flowers, pets, like all kinds of things. I guess the main reason that I got started in it was I've got a twin sister and she wanted a modeling portfolio. And that was when we were back at school. And at the time, like my parents couldn't afford to pay for a photographer. And I was like, that's fine, I can take the pictures and I'll do it in the garden at home. So I took a bunch of pictures at home in the garden. And then I guess a big thing for me was when I went back to school, I had so many people come up to me and were like, oh, you did that. Like, that's amazing. And at the time, like I was just piling on loads of filters in Photoshop, loads of different textures. It looks really bad now. But like looking back on it, that's where it kind of started. And from there, it was kind of like I experimented with studio style photography. And then like a big part of my personality in general is that I love being outside and I love being in nature. So I guess it kind of just went hand in hand with that. And mainly like when I was walking my dog as well, that's when I would kind of be like, oh, I feel so inspired to take a picture. And that's when stories would kind of come along, I guess.
Yeah, that's really cool. Did you have any sort of like photo editing experience when you first started taking those photos? You said you put like a lot of filters on. Had you already
Yeah.
done some editing?
So when I was young, I was probably like 10. I would just YouTube and try and find tutorials online, and I would spend so many hours online watching tutorials on how to just even cut out a subject, how to kind of make your photo look vintage. And those are the kind of things I would search. So YouTube was a massive thing for me. I would spend hours and hours just kind of playing around with my own photos.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, that's really the cool thing about just having all these resources nowadays, with the internet and all these online communities, and we have all these, Adobe communities as well as is like learning any new software is so accessible, and it becomes something that a lot of people can just kind of do by themselves without necessarily having to take classes or anything formal. So
Yeah.
it's really great that way.
I think it's really cool. And it's kind of just like if I ever got stuck in Photoshop and I was like, I don't know how to do this, I would literally just go on Google or on YouTube and say, how do you do this? And it would come up with so many different techniques, because that's the thing with Photoshop and editing. There are so many different ways to do one thing. So there's so many different ways that I can mask a subject out. And it's kind of just experimenting and then seeing what you feel most comfortable with yourself. And every image is different as well. Some images you will edit differently.
Yeah, and it's amazing how many instructional videos are out there, because it's almost like an encyclopedia. You'll just search like this one specific thing you're trying to do, or technique or problem that you're having, and very, very good chance you're going to find a video on it.
Yeah, definitely. And that's not something that I just did when I started. Like I still do that now. Like if there's a certain thing that I want to do, I will research and see how can I do this and how can I create certain effects in my photo.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, even with me, I've been using Photoshop for a long time now, but I I do a certain thing in Photoshop. I've done a little bit of compositing and stuff here and there, but I mostly do
Yeah.
digital drawing and painting. So even though it's something I've used for so long, it's such a robust tool. Like there's so many features and things that you can do with it, but you don't necessarily need all those. You kind of, depending on what you're doing, you may stick to a little niche group of tools that you use for your particular workflow.
Yeah.
So it's great because, I'm still learning new things in Photoshop pretty frequently. And if I need to, I could just search it and there's probably something that will tell me how to do it.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's the way forward with it all. So even this new feature of replacing skies, like that's going to be a godsend because I've never had that, and it's always been a case of just manually doing it myself. But no, I think that's awesome.
Yeah, and just things like it's always interesting when there's things that just make the job easier or that at least kind of mix up your workflow to save you some time. But yeah, things like that, select subjects. Sometimes it seems like Photoshop's getting just a lot smarter, as time goes on. So it's interesting
Yeah,
to see
definitely.
that those like time-saving things develop. We got a great question from Marcia that says, "Are there any particular painters or photographers that you admire?"
Well, that is a good question. Um, I'd say I really admire the work of Tim Walker. So he is a fashion photographer, but he doesn't so much just shoot fashion. He always makes sure to tells a story with his work, and it's always so playful. And he doesn't use Photoshop though. He has everything on location. So he has these giant props and just incredible locations as well. So yeah, I definitely say if you haven't heard of Tim Walker, go and check him out because his work's incredible. It's mind blowing.
I think we had another question here. Let's see. Do you create your composites in 8-bit or 16-bit image mode? If I did a composite in 8 bits, it's too late afterwards. Is it too late afterwards to put into 16-bit to avoid having bandwidth?
That's not something that I've ever come across myself. I've never had that kind of issue. Um, I don't know if you were going to edit it in a different style. For me, this kind of has always worked for me, and I've never had an issue with it.
Yeah, I'm the same way actually. It's not an option I've ever really given any consideration. I don't think I've ever
Yeah,
really needed to, so I haven't actually had to do any of that one way or the other.
no, I've never come across that before. But no, it's interesting. I've not thought of it before.
Also, Cody Bear put Tim Walker photography in chat. Thanks, Cody. So definitely check that out if you all want to see it. And I know when you were talking about him, you mentioned narrative a bit, and it seems like narrative is probably a consideration you have in your own work. Just looking at your portfolio, there's like that fantasy kind of fairy tale sort of feel to a lot of it. Is narrative something you think about a lot, and is it something you've always done?
I don't think it's something I've always done, but that's something when I look at my old portfolio that I notice straight away. So I feel like with this kind of genre of photography, it's very easy to kind of just get lost in the idea of, I don't know, like a girl with a pretty picture in a dress, in the woods. And that's a very easy kind of thing to think of. And it's something that I sometimes myself, I feel guilty. I'm like, oh, I need to put more thought into this and actually think of like a story and how I can kind of draw someone in. So it is something that I'm always very aware of when I'm creating a picture, is that I want people to look at it and kind of see it as like a movie scene almost, and kind of think what is the story, what's going on here. And that's sometimes why I do work a lot with props, or I will edit them in, because I want someone to look at a picture and feel something rather than just looking at a dress, if that makes sense.
No, absolutely. I mean, it's funny you say that because I think that's probably a pretty common sort of evolution that a lot of artists have is because it's the same thing for me. When I first started drawing and painting, I really got caught up in anatomy. So you said like a pretty girl in a dress, my
Yeah.
equivalent would just be like an anatomy study. And then I'd try to stick a background in there. And so it'd just be like this shirtless, muscular dude. And I would be like, all right, I guess that's the piece. And
Yeah,
then
it's
like,
it's easy to feel like that.
yeah, and then like as I kind of evolved, you consider different things. Everyone's always learning gradually as they refine their craft. And for me, it was like, all right, I need to learn a little bit about costume design. I need to learn a little bit about more lighting. And then a big thing for me now, and I think it's been this way for a while, is narrative. And I think that's a huge aspect to make a piece really compelling to a lot of people.
Yeah, and I just think like you said as well, it's just being aware of it as well. Um, Rather than just sticking something together, it's very good to just pre-plan stuff as much as you can. So when you do come to shooting, like you've got all those elements there, and it's just kind of a case of how does it develop in front of you? Because sometimes I will have an idea and I'll go to shoot it and I will change things when I'm there. And it's all just kind of a case of just seeing what works, and then that just comes with practice, I guess.
Yeah, and I think it's like you said, just kind of having that idea. I think when you're approaching it, you want to have a sort of goal in mind. Like, what am I trying to achieve with this? What mood, or like what feeling, or what's the kind of goal of this design or this piece?
Yeah, definitely. For me, it's always like having substance and having something there which isn't just a pretty picture. I mean, I do love pretty pictures as well, but I always want someone to feel something. I don't want people to just look at a picture and say, "Oh, that's nice." I want them to kind of a bit more than that. Yeah, I think that's how I always try and approach photo shoots.
I think those are the ones that kind of stick with you longer too. Like when you scroll through a bunch of things on Instagram, a lot of times you only spend like a second on it before flipping to the next one. But I think the ones
Yeah,
that you kind of remember or go back to are the ones that are have a little bit of a story to it.
yeah, definitely.
And I remember watching a YouTube video by an artist. It was some title like the number one tip to make your art better or something like that. And basically the summary of it was narrative and story. Like if you add a story to your piece, it instantly brings people in more. And
Yeah.
it's something I feel like I haven't done enough in the past, but something I'm probably one of the largest like things I'm trying to consider moving forward, because I think that's what makes something memorable and compelling.
Yeah, definitely. It's something that I'm still working on to myself. It's I think it is the main if I had to say the main things that go into my work, it would be the storytelling and then it would be the other elements. And it all just kind of goes together. So having a good dress and having a good location and a good pose, and then it's just kind of how you construct it together and how you put your own spin on it, I guess.
Yeah, it's like when all those fundamentals come together and each one's quality, that's what makes it work.
Yeah.
You said you mentioned pose just now. Is posing something you're very um, intentional about with these photo shoots?
Yeah, definitely. So with this one, we did a bunch of different poses, but for me, I always like it when the model isn't looking at the camera. And that is just because it looks less like a fashion piece. And it is something that you can kind of get drawn into it. And if, for example, even if the model's face wasn't in it, and just seeing like the back of a model, it could make you feel like you're part of the scene, like you're almost the character or the person. And with this, by not having the model look directly at the camera, to me, I'm hoping when people look at it, it kind of draws them in and makes them feel less looking at the model and more looking at like everything else that's going on.
Yeah, definitely. And it's funny how such a small detail, just like where the model's looking in terms of the camera or not, can make such a different sort of visual impact.
Yeah, definitely.
Because I totally know what you mean. It's like even when I'm posing characters and stuff, like that's something I consider. Even just sometimes having their torso kind of turned differently from their head, I think
Yeah.
adds a certain sense of like, I don't know, interest. Hello, Michelle. Michelle's in chat. Welcome on in.
Hello.
And just a reminder to everyone, we will be going over the daily creative challenges that are in the Discord for Photoshop in just over half an hour. So if anyone has something to share, you can go ahead and post it now. We'll be scrolling, checking a few of those out. And if you want to know more about the daily creative challenges, you can click the challenge tab at the top. But it's just these challenges we do each day. They're about 30 minutes, and we do a different sort of method, different technique, and it's a good way to learn kind of new things and practice in Photoshop. And we have a whole community for it too.
So this is kind of like the longest process. So it might be a bit boring to watch, but it is something that I always love to do, and I do find it relaxing as well, just kind of masking out the subject.
Do you find it tricky to manually mask out the hair? That's something that would definitely intimidate me.
Yeah, it is intimidating. But what I'm going to do after this as well is I will add another layer, just to kind of darken the hair, and then that will help blend it in with the background more.
Oh, very nice. So has COVID and the whole kind of lockdown situation really affected your ability to go out and shoot? Or do are you still able to do that? Has it kind of affected you in that way at all?
Yeah, it's had a big impact on me. So with COVID, I also shoot weddings as well as like these fantasy portraits. So all my weddings this year have either cancelled or they've been postponed to next year. Um, so that was a bit of a difficult one for me. But in terms of editing and stuff, I've still been able to work from home. So what I actually did this year is I started a Harry Potter series. Um, and the reason that I did that was like a way of staying creative in lockdown. So it started off as a way I was shooting self portraits to start with. And for me, like I hate being in front of the camera, which is really weird saying that as being a photographer, but I feel like I'm better off behind it. But it was just really interesting for me to kind of put myself in the frame um, and just put the tripod there and kind of experience it from a different perspective. But for me, I just felt like it wasn't so much the great thing about it. It was like the focus wasn't on me. And because the work that I do, it was kind of the focus was on the wizarding world. And it was about like the magic in the scene rather than me. So it was really cool. I'm really proud of it.
Yeah, I was meaning to ask you about that because I saw it seems like that's a recent project, right? Because I know with your Instagram, it's some of your latest photos.
Yeah, it's definitely a recent project. I only started it this year. And I guess it started off, it was literally just a way of staying creative in lockdown. Um, but the whole Harry Potter series means so much to me because growing up, it literally taught me so many life lessons. And I guess sometimes it made me feel like I fit into a world when I necessarily didn't feel like I did fit in. Um, and I think as well, J.K. Rowling has made some pretty, I guess, ignorant comments to say the least this year. So for me, it was kind of like, right, now this series started off as self-portrait series. I want to kind of make it into my own magic series. So I want to be inclusive of other people too. So when lockdown restrictions eased off, I've started shooting my friends. I have started shooting with models for it as well, because I want the series to be inclusive of everyone. So regardless of your gender, your sexuality, your skin color, age, whatever, I'm kind of excited to make my own world, essentially. So rather than just focus on the series and the books itself, to make my own version of it.
Yeah, that's really cool. So it's kind of like taking the universe that it takes place in, but sort of doing your own thing with it.
Yeah, and I feel like everyone does need that magic right now. And especially like in England, we are going into our second lockdown tomorrow, which is going to be so weird. But it is something and just like, you know what, I need to create some artwork, even if it's just for myself. And it will just keep me busy and sane, I guess, because a big
Yeah.
part of it is sometimes like I do create and it is like almost like therapy.
Mhm.
When I do work, it's kind of like it takes my mind off everything and it just makes me feel so relaxed and just at peace with everything. So if I've got something going on in my personal life, I do try and blend that in with my fantasy pictures.
Yeah. I mean, it's great that you can get that kind of when you're just finding the zone and you can just sort of space out and get immersed in what you're working in.
Yeah, it's for me talking, I guess, it isn't really my strong point. For me, it's just like I feel like if I can create a picture of how I'm feeling and put it out there, like if it might help other people as well. But for me, as soon as I create a picture, it feels like I can put everything into it and then that's kind of done with, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
But that's just getting a bit deep.
Yeah.
That's just me on a personal level with it.
And no, I mean, that's great. That's like, it's really kind of powerful if you have something that you can really kind of put yourself into in that way.
Yeah.
I love the lighting in the Harry Potter series, by the way, especially the image of the girl with the books flying around above her, and it's in a sort of like almost it's kind of castle-y looking setting. She's
Oh
got
yeah.
the glowing wand, and then
Oh
there's the one with the guy holding the lantern.
yeah, that's
Out.
me.
Oh,
That's
it's
me, that
you.
one.
Oh
Yeah.
man, I love that little like hut that you found there.
Oh, it's so cool. So that's an actual real Hagrid's hut. I stayed in it with my friends recently. And I was like, I need to get a shot in front of the door. It was epic.
Yeah, yeah, those are great. I mean, I guess that's the kind of cool, warm lighting that I'm always super drawn to. Uh,
Yeah, I mean,
Great.
it was weird because well, that one wasn't necessarily all natural light. Obviously, I had the lanterns and everything else going on, but I just felt like the blues and the oranges really worked well together.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's certainly a kind of go-to color scheme for me. It's probably my
Yeah.
favorite one. Leslie in chat says, I think most of us photographers hate being in front of the camera.
Yeah, it's so weird, isn't it?
I mean, it's relatable to me for sure. I mean, even it's kind of like being a streamer and not liking, you know, kind of watching yourself or hearing yourself. The little you think
Yeah.
you'd be used to it, but it's like, I just kind of turn on the camera and do my thing. I don't think about it.
No, I mean, I hate listening to like video recordings afterwards as well, so I try not to.
Yeah, I think it's pretty relatable for a lot of people. Paloma in chat says, yeah, the charm of levitation photo is everything.
Oh, thank you. It was a really fun picture to shoot as well. So all of the stock in that picture was ones that I shot myself, and that was just so that the lighting matched as well. But no, it was so much fun shooting that. I shot that with my friend Holly. It was so much fun.
Yeah, was it tough to get all those books shot in the way that you did?
We shot a bunch of different photos. So basically, I had Holly run around, kind of flapping the book in different directions, until I just felt like I had enough stock pictures. But some of them were a case of just throwing the books in the air, and I would try and get photos. But on tomorrow's edit, I'm actually going to do an edit showing how I edit the books and how I kind of add depth, I guess, with editing. So how I scale them and blur them to kind of look like there's more than that actually was there. Because I think there was only one or two books actually there on that shoot.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
so
all the
you're
others are edited.
trying to add some like variety so it looks like different books.
Yeah, and just so it doesn't look like there's one book, I kind of wanted it to kind of have that depth and kind of like lead you into the picture.
Very cool. Yeah, I mean that whole series seems like it must have been a lot of fun to do, especially like if you're a very long time fan of that world and those stories. Being able to do a whole series off that seems like a great opportunity.
Yeah, it was so much fun, and the weird thing was it almost took the whole nervousness of being in front of the camera away because I was so comfortable with the story. And like I was running around the woods in a cape and I was just like I didn't even care.
That's great.
Oh no, I had a few people like watching as well. I was just like, this is just a lot of fun. Like I don't mind.
Yeah, I mean it's great to kind of do things like that, try new things, get out of the comfort zone.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess that's what it was. And I feel I've never done an actual series. With most of my work, it is standalone pieces. So to have a series now, which is, I think I've got like 14 or 15 pictures from it, I feel really proud of it. And it's something that I definitely want to carry on working with.
Do you typically work in series like that? Do you think of like bodies of work that you want to do, or do you do a lot of one-off images?
Yeah, most of them are one-offs. I don't think I've ever done a series before, really, apart from maybe like one or two. But to me, I was just like, I wouldn't class that as a series. It was just kind of images which were in the same realm. But no, most of them are standalone pieces. So whereas a lot of photographers will do a shoot and then might provide 20 to 30 pictures for the model, I normally just provide one. And that is a case of me choosing like the best picture of the model and then combining it with about 10 other pictures and blending it. So I've got like the best hair flip and the best dress movement, and I've got the best pose, I've got the best lighting. So I kind of put it all together like a jigsaw piece, and then yeah, it's just one picture.
Oh, so you put together multiple pictures of like an actual model?
Yeah, as I have done. So I did a photo shoot before where I stitched the model together in Photoshop with about 10 different pictures of a dress, just to kind of make it look fuller than what it actually was. So yeah, I do that quite a lot. I love to kind of piece things together.
Oh, that's really interesting.
it takes a long time.
Yeah.
It takes such a long time, but I always like putting my like everything into creating one amazing shot rather than having 10 okay shots.
Yeah, I mean that's really cool. Like if you have something about each image that you really like, um, I imagine that like there's got to be some challenge in getting that to fit together seamlessly or to like kind of look natural.
Yeah, it's I'd say the biggest tip with that would be to try and shoot everything on location if you can. And sometimes if I am when I have the plan in mind of the picture, I do find stock before I shoot so I know what kind of lighting or what kind of angle I would need to shoot from.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good tip. Do you feel like your style has evolved at all throughout the years to kind of come to what it is, or has it always? Do you feel like it's always been a certain look that you've been after from the beginning?
I feel like it's starting to get there now. I'm a big lover of blue tones in my work. So when I can do, I will try and have those dark blue tones, which I probably will do in this picture afterwards. Um, but yeah, it's definitely something that's just evolved over time. And I guess the more that I've shot, the more I figured out like this is the direction that I want to take it in. Um, but yeah, it's definitely for me just trying to replicate that painting feel. That is something that I've always tried to kind of go with.
Hmm. Yeah, I think one thing that seems really fun about photography and what you do. I mean, shooting on location just seems like a really great way to control things, but also the whole sort of aspect of traveling somewhere, finding a location seems like kind of fun in and of itself. Just
Yeah, it's so much fun.
kind of like an adventure tied into the piece that you're working on.
Yeah, definitely. That's the way I kind of look at it, rather than just doing the physical picture. A lot of the shoots that I've done, like, I've come away with great memories and just some really fun times on photo shoots. I mean, once I did fall off a ladder and break my wrist when I was
Ooh.
taking pictures, so that wasn't the best. Um, but like in general, like I love the shooting just as much as the editing, I'd say.
Yeah, yeah, I can definitely see that. I haven't really done any photography before, but I remember when before I got into art and painting and everything like that, I was kind of considering, like film and that sort of thing. And I
Yeah.
remember making a couple like little film projects and stuff when I was doing that. But those were like memorable, times, just fun times with the people you're shooting with, finding the whole process of creating the thing is there's like a lot more of an actual experience tied into it, which I think is really kind of intriguing and interesting.
Yeah, it is. And it's kind of like, it's just that I love what I do. And a big part of that is the whole process. So initially coming up with the ideas and planning them and then finding a location, like to me, it's just really exciting. I've been doing this now for years. So it's the norm for me now, I guess.
Yeah. Does it seem like each shoot you do, each image, you said a lot of them are one-offs.
Yeah.
Um, does it seem like it's a lot that goes into every image, or is a lot of this like you just go very quickly, you shoot and you leave, or is it a very kind of intensive process from start to finish?
I'd say that I'm a quick shooter. So I normally have in my head and kind of have an idea. So if I had to shoot, I would know, for example, for that book photo, I knew that I needed one shot of kind of the pose that I liked, and then one shot with the cape moving, and then I knew that I needed shots of the books moving around. So then that just makes shooting like I shot that literally it probably would have been about 5-10 minutes. But it was kind of having that mindset of having the image already planned in my head and just saying, right, I only need about 5 shots in total. And yeah, it's just planning. I'd say planning would be the main thing for it.
Definitely, yeah. I think that helps when you have a good idea. Do you ever sketch this stuff out, or is it all just kind of a vision you have in your head?
Yeah, I do. So I have a little book where I either draw things in or I write ideas down. Um, I have shared a few drawings that I've done before, but I'm not a very good drawer. So most of the time it doesn't look anything like the finished product, but I always had that idea in my head and was like, this is how I want it to go.
Yeah, I mean, even if it's just like a super rough sketch, little thumbnail sketches and everything, just the ability to kind of visualize how you want to structure it is super helpful, I think.
Yeah, and just having that kind of general kind of idea, because it can change. Like when you're editing or shooting, you could say, oh, it looks better in this way instead. But I think just having that general plan and idea in the first place is massively helpful.
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah, it's always interesting because I think it's good to have that allowance for flexibility in your workflow, because I get that
Yeah.
too. A lot of times I'll do a sketch and I'll think I want to go that direction. And when you actually kind of get into it, you're like, this
Yeah,
may
like
actually
this
work better.
works.
Yeah. And I mean, that's what I love about Photoshop too. If I painted traditionally or something, that'd be a lot harder. But working digitally like that, there's just so much flexibility to try different things.
Yeah, 100%. Awesome. So now I can see all of the little areas that I've missed. So I'm just going to go around and make sure that I fill all of those in.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that makes it much more clear. Jayutirma, welcome in. I believe Mallory is also here too. Hello, Mallory. Welcome on in, everybody.
Where is everybody watching from? It's pretty dark here now. It's almost 7 o'clock.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, let us know where you're tuning in from. Yeah, it's always... I like when it stays lighter longer. I always like when, it's pretty late and it's still sun's up.
Yeah, I mean, my favorite time of year is either spring or the beginning of autumn. I mean, now it's getting closer to winter. I'm like, oh no, it gets dark by like 3 o'clock, and then like, it just means I haven't got as many hours in the day to shoot, I guess.
Yeah, I was gonna say that, like, I guess directly affects your work too.
Yeah, I guess the only good thing would be if it was a sunny day, which at the moment it's been quite overcast pretty much every day. But if it was a sunny day, it means that I'd only have to shoot at like 4 o'clock rather than 9 o'clock at night.
Mhm.
So I guess that is a good thing.
Have you ever done, I know like golden hour and everything is very common time to shoot photography. Have you ever had a reason to try to shoot like as the sun's rising?
No, that's because I'm not a morning person. I mean, I would love to. I mean, those are my two. If I was going to pick a time of day to shoot, it would be at sunrise or sunset. But I'm terrible at getting up in the morning, so I'd always pick sunset.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I don't feel like there's any real visual difference. I don't know if as a photographer, is there like any difference between dawn, dusk, like sunset, sunrise?
I
Seems
wouldn't
like
have
it'd be
thought.
the same.
Yeah, I would have thought it'd be the same.
Richard says, I'm in the dark too. All right, we got some people chiming in from where they're at. Wow, okay, so there's a pretty wide range here. We got Canada, India, Brooklyn, New York, Portugal.
Oh, that's
Let me see.
crazy.
Montreal, Canada, I think I saw that. Central Florida, Philadelphia. Cody's from Oregon. Northern England, Sweden. Very nice.
Yeah, from everywhere. That's awesome.
Yeah, Netherlands too. Then I'm chiming in from Southern California, so pretty wide range here. Is there anywhere you have in your head that's like a must travel place for you in terms of photography, things that you'd want to shoot, like somewhere you gotta go?
I would love to go to Iceland. I think that's always been one that I would just adore to go to. Where else would I like to go? No, I'd say Iceland is probably the one on the bucket list. That's a photography goal. I mean, there's so many places in the world that I would love to visit just personally. But yeah, photography wise, I would love to go to Iceland.
Yeah, I've always seen some amazing photos from Iceland when people I know who have traveled there.
Yeah. Is it where would be your like ideal place to go to?
Oh, well, there's a lot of places like you say Iceland, that's definitely on there. There's a lot of places like in Scandinavia essentially that just seem really, really interesting.
Yeah.
I would say Switzerland is a place I've thought about. New Zealand.
Yeah, definitely.
New Zealand seems like it's pretty amazing too. I mean, there's a lot of places I want to go just to travel in general. It's definitely something I want to do more of moving forward. But in terms of like landscapes, I think Switzerland, Iceland, New Zealand stand out for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I would love to kind of get some trips planned and organized, but with everything going on right now, I'm just like, right, I'm just gonna have to stay in England. But I
Yeah.
do feel really lucky, and with England as well, that we have so many amazing castles and follies, and just I guess that's where a big part of inspiration comes from is living around all these areas. But I don't know if there's anywhere else in the world that does have a lot of epic castles and things like that. I would definitely love to know about them.
Yeah. Yeah. That's like, those are definitely things I want to see more of too. Cause, here in the US, we don't really have those. So there's a lot of places I'd love to travel to just to see those landscapes and that like history and everything.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, with America, the only place I've ever been to in America is Disney World in Orlando. But I loved that. I really adored it and I'd go back. But I would definitely love to visit some different places um, and just kind of see because, yeah, I haven't really been out that much apart from England. So it'd be good to.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's kind of like in this situation we're in, it's something I like to think about. I'm like, I don't know when I'll be able to, but I like to think about where I would go.
Yeah.
Oh, we also have some other people, a couple people chiming in from Brazil, which is really cool.
Oh, cool.
Ukraine, Patrick's from Germany. Very nice. Yeah, there's always like a pretty international audience here on Adobe Live, which is really cool to see.
That's awesome.
So do your composites usually end up having a lot of layers by the end of it, or is it usually kept fairly simple?
I'm quite bad and I flatten my layers quite a lot. um, but that's a habit I'm trying not to be in. But usually, yeah, I will build up the layer. As soon as I've cut all this out, I will go through and I'll add different layers just so I can kind of adjust things easily. And if I do change my mind, then I can, go back and it'll be okay. Because sometimes I flatten my layers. I'm like, oh, why did I do that? Like I'm going to have to edit the whole picture again. Um, but no, I feel pretty happy with this kind of overall selection that we've done so far.
Yeah, that's looking good.
That's pretty good. I don't know if I will do anything more with the hair just yet. I would probably, I'd be tempted to get rid of some of this hair actually and probably just
Really?
brush it out. Let me get the other tool just to kind of make it look a little bit neater.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see what that looks like. If it looks weird, I will change it. But I just want to see what it looks like. Yeah, I'd probably edit that back in and just get rid of this top bit here.
It seems like that sort of soft edge you get too almost adds a bit to that painterly feel.
Yeah, and that's why I always make sure that my brush, my hardness is at 0, just because I don't want it to look too cut out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's something I think about a lot, even just with painting, is when I use things like lasso tools to make selections and I paint that in, if you have an edge that's just too razor sharp, sometimes
Yeah,
it just looks very digital, and it's always like a balance I'm trying to get.
yeah, definitely. It's just trying to make it look more natural, I guess, as well.
Tiara, welcome on in from Pittsburgh. Robert from Denver. Denver is nice. Have some great photo from there. Oh yeah, some really nice photos from Denver. I hear Colorado um, has some really nice some landscapes. I have some friends from a few different places in the U.S. that sometimes I'm jealous of. It seems like they have some really great landscapes around there. I'm very
Yeah.
much in the city, so I have to go pretty far to go anywhere nice.
How far would you class as far?
I mean, it's Southern California, so it's kind of deserty. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I I don't know. There's definitely some nice areas and some hikes you can go on, but it's not like an area I really consider that's accessible in terms of like, oh, you can find this really great place to go for a hike or this really great landscape. It seems like you usually have to go, you know, outside the city, go somewhere else
Yeah.
completely. And LA is just a huge place in general too. Like, I mean, I'm on one end of it, and if I want to go to the other end, like past downtown LA, you know, it could easily be an hour drive or more, depending on traffic. So
That's crazy, isn't it?
we do have the beach, which is very nice. Shouldn't take that for granted. Like I can get to the beach very quickly from here.
Oh, I'm
So
jealous.
that is a
It
nice
takes me
perk.
about two hours to get to the beach, I think. That would be the closest one to me.
Oh yeah.
About 2 hours away.
Yeah, I can actually jog down to the beach in like, I don't know, 3 minutes or something like that. So
Oh, stop it. I'm so jealous.
so it's pretty nice. The thing is, like, I mean, with the current situation, I could blame it on that, but I'm just kind of an introvert and a shut-in to some degree myself. So it's like
Yeah.
sometimes I feel bad because it's like it's an awesome thing to be able to live that close, but I don't really take advantage of it as much as I probably should.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it, when you think like that, when you've got it pretty much on your doorstep. But no, I would love the beach.
Yeah,
I find it really relaxing there.
for sure. It's like really one of my favorite places to be, not when it's like the peak heat of the day, but a little bit before sunset where, you know, the sun's starting to go down, it's cooling off. You're not like right in the direct sunlight.
Yeah.
It's a really kind of relaxing place to be. I should take a cue from you and start going out a little bit more. I could even take my iPad doing some like sort of digital plein air painting, you know, get out more in the landscapes and paint things that I see. Definitely
Yeah,
be.
definitely.
I think that stuff's great for inspiration for sure. Cody's kind of in the same position. She says, when I lived in Orange County, I lived 10 minutes from the beach and never went. Yeah, it's like
No.
it's like whenever I go near there, I'm like, man, I need to come down here more. And I don't know if you like skateboard or anything. I never have growing up, but when we moved here to this apartment, I bought myself a longboard, and I've used it a good amount, but I was kind of saying like, you know, I'm gonna make it a regular thing where I go down and ride along the sort of boardwalk area near the beach, and I really need to do that now.
I'd be awful on a skateboard. I mean, I would love to. I think it'd be awesome, but no, I wouldn't trust myself on a skateboard at all.
I don't really like. I'm not super, you know, coordinated on it. I can stand up. I can see. I don't even know what it's called. What do you paddle? You push off. You make yourself go.
I have no idea.
I'm paddling on my board, right? And I can turn kind of. So as
Yeah.
long as it's not is if there's a hill, I'm picking it up and I'm walking down the hill.
I would be the same.
I'm not playing that game, but it's enough. It's pretty flat around here, so it's enough for me.
Awesome.
Longboarding's the California life. Yeah, you know, I have to have something because I don't surf. I've never surfed before, so I need at least need a longboard or they're gonna kick me out of California, I think. I do say dude a lot though, so maybe that makes up for
You say
it.
dude.
Yeah. Dude. I think I used to I say bro sometimes, but I feel like I started saying it ironically, and then the dangerous thing about ever doing that with any word is you just start saying it.
Yeah.
Viola says, yeah, I know someone in Italy who has never seen the Colosseum. Oh man.
Oh,
I'm
really?
surprised. I feel like people have usually at least seen like the big landscape or the big attraction near where they live at least once.
Yeah, I mean, most people think with England as well that I would be in London a lot, and I mean, I've been in London a few times, but not as much as people would think. I've probably seen Big Ben like twice in my life, which isn't a lot.
Uh-huh.
So at the moment, I'm literally just darkening this moon as much as I can. So I'll bring down the highlights just to kind of make it a little bit softer in the transition. So let me just bring that down. And then with the moon as well, I definitely want to change the color of it. So I'm going to make it a little bit more orange tone just to match the dress a little bit more.
Yeah, that works nicely.
Looks way better. And then I need to fix this part of the hand here.
So were you envisioning something about the background for this, or is it just like a kind of a dark black background?
So I want to put stars in, which I will do shortly, just so it's not so just a plain background, just so then it adds a bit more depth to it, I guess.
Definitely. And just a heads up to everyone, we're about to switch over to check out the challenges pretty soon. Once again, if you haven't seen them, you can click the challenge tab above the chat there, above it to the right, and it'll give you all the information. If you ever want to submit challenges that you do onto the Discord, you can get feedback, and a lot of times on stream we review them. So we'll be doing that in just a bit. Adam, whenever you're at kind of a good stopping point, we can switch over.
Yeah, I'm good.
Oh, you good now?
Yeah, that's fine.
Excellent. All right, so if anyone hasn't seen today's challenge, it is information card. And the challenge is use selection tools to cut out a subject and place it within an information card. So these are the challenges. And if anyone hasn't seen the challenges so far, there's been a lot of like kind of spooky themes. Voodoo Val is running this current set of challenges, and it's very like Halloween themed, a lot of kind of scary stuff. So you can see the whole sort of vibe we're getting with the different challenges throughout here. So we'll be going through these, then we'll do a handful of these, see where we get. But first one is I Believe. And again, this is kind of an information card with selection tools. Yeah, I really like this. I love the colors on this wolf. It's almost kind of like this wolf fox hybrid look to it.
That's so cool.
And yeah, this text definitely kind of fits that vibe. I've been seeing this text a lot with these challenges, and I think it's really cool. It's got like a sort of, I don't know, I always think of vampires when I see this text, but that fits I think the look and feel of this really nicely. Nice job too with the sort of moon here, the texture. Compositionally, I think that's pretty nice, like backing element to this challenge.
Yeah, it ties it in well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the textures and colors fit together really nicely too. We have Abudallah up next with this one.
Well, they're doing a really good job of selecting.
Yeah, I was just kind of looking at the masking around that. Fur is definitely a tricky one. Fur and hair, I think,
it's so tricky.
Yeah, that can be tough, but there's definitely a nice texture along the edge of this. And I like how you broke the frame a bit with the wolf's nose here. I was trying to think of what this text is reminding me of. Like I saw something just recently, very similar. But yeah, this kind of fits that old sort of timey feel very well. Yeah, this looks good. I like the just this small element of breaking the frame, I think works really well to add a lot of interest to this piece. And then we have Mercurial Forte. Ooh.
Oh, I like the background.
Yeah, some nice texture with that. Kind of like a worn paper look. And actually, like the first thing I thought when I saw this piece was this sort of backing moon reminds me of what is it, Klimt? The artist Klimt? What am I thinking of? I feel like I'm saying that wrong. But that kind of golden like foil look definitely makes me think of that. Nice job with the masking on the fur too of the wolf. Those little tufts of
and
fur.
the colors are really good too.
Yeah, kind of that cool warm contrast we were talking about.
Yeah, the orange and blue, it works really well.
Awesome job. Gerard is up next. Okay, so we got another spooky animal, but a vulture this time. Yeah, this looks good. I mean, you definitely get a lot of nice focus on the center with the color and the contrast here. there's like a nice visual balance with the title at the top. Yeah, this looks good. Texture works really well too. Looks like we got a few from Frank, our own Frank with the day 5 challenge and the day 7. So it looks like he posted the source photo that he used here, which is really cool. And this is the edited one.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, this looks great. Like the little bits of shadow that you kind of see under the paper, like around the top right and the bottom left, kind of around the corners, that gives it a lot of depth, which is really nice. Yeah, this is a great mock-up. I love the texture too. You can see kind of like faded the edges here. So it almost looks like a worn photo or image of some kind. Yeah, this works nicely. I want to see this again. Yeah, the coloration does such a good job of kind of adding to that aged feel. It's always like that sort of sepia tone that really pushes that look.
Yeah, it makes it feel like it's from a different era. It's really cool.
And I just noticed the poster too. I like that. That's a very nice touch.
Oh yeah, that's so cool.
I think is this I don't know if Frank's in the chat right now, but I think this is a past image he did. I don't think it was this year. I think it was sometime previously, but I remember that challenge. Very cool. And
you have a good memory.
I remember his scarecrow, very memorable like design that he did. Oh, this is cool. I like this idea. Taking a little like Halloween costume, turning into a monster card. Age 2,458 years old. Yes.
Oh, I love that.
This is I really do like the sort of edited monster eye. It fits in with the photo really well. Like that's a really nice composite. I assume these are two different photos that you composited together, but it fits really well within that kind of gap in the bandages.
Oh, is the before picture there? I'd love to see what the before looked like.
Yeah, that would be great to see the source. It's always really cool when people include, you know, all the source photos together so you can really see what they did, but I don't think he provided it for this one. And we got Mark Allen up next. Werewolf, lycanthrope times. I like it. I like this little flourish here, like the little paw print. The flourish. I don't know if it's just cool. I don't know if it's just me, if the paw print is the same tone of black as the text. Maybe that's just my eyes playing tricks on me. But I was going to say unifying those is always a good way to give it kind of a cohesive feel, but I think those actually are the same value. I like this sort of coloration you have. Like the colors on this one are very subdued compared to some of the others, but it kind of gives it that old-timey sort of like printed look, which is really neat. We got another little moon, which is cool.
Yeah, I really like the moon.
Yeah, this looks great, Mark. We got Key as well. I almost get like a sort of slightly, like, I want to say watercolor or almost painted look from this. Which is
yeah,
really
it does look very painterly.
I think if you wanted to push that even more, like kind of blending the texture around the end of the neck, or even putting like a little bit of like watercolor droplets, depending on, you know, what style you're trying to mimic, that could be kind of neat. Which would make sense for this, like it's this old time sort of hand illustrated poster about werewolves. I like the way you broke up the text too here. A lot of times, like if you have a poster that's just nothing but text, it can kind of be tough to read, but this kind of segmenting it works really well. We got Ant as well. I think I saw Ant using this spider in another design, so it's good to see a return of the spider. Yeah, this is great. Monster spider, then we also got rabid wolves. So this is kind of a poster about more than one creature here. It could be cool to see, like, instead of the lorem ipsum, it could be cool to like type up a little kind of description about each one, just to really solidify that sort of realistic feel more.
Yeah, I really like the contrasting colors again. It's the blue and orange. It keeps coming back. It's really cool.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we get a lot of the blue up here. That text contrasts nicely. I do feel like the The silhouette of the spider could maybe be pushed a bit more. The bright orange contrasts really well, like the legs with the blue background, but the sort of end part of, I feel like I should know what that's called. The end part of the spider here, the
I have no
abdomen.
idea.
I want to say thorax, abdomen. I don't know. I'm not a spider doctor, guys. I'm sorry. But making that contrast with the background, maybe in terms of value, or even, yeah. I mean, I think the color scheme you have, the blue orange, works well, but maybe something that just kind of pops that silhouette up. You could even darken this piece of the spider a bit and lighten it. It may give it a little bit more value pop. But yeah, this is looking really good. I really do like that color contrast. And we got Fairy. I think Fairy's in the chat. I love this. This looks good. Account payable bounty. So it's like a sort of bounty card here. The stamp is a great touch.
Yeah, I like the stamp.
Kind of an official look to it. Yeah, it looks like there's a bit of fluctuation in terms of the contrast. I don't know if that's due to some sort of blending mode or something that you did, like the 1987 is much darker than the birth date, which I think a little bit of like variation throughout it is cool because it kind of looks like some parts are faded. But it looks like all this stuff in the center is more faded. It might be nice to see a little bit more contrast in the title text here and have that really like stand out a little bit more compared to the rest of it. But
yeah, I really like how it's brighter on the left and then darker on the right. I feel like it would probably, if you could blend that over the picture a bit more as well, so it's lighter on just the one side to the dark, it would blend so much better. But as like a whole, I think it's great.
oh, do you mean like kind of having it consistent with the background in terms of
Yeah,
fade?
so maybe even like blending the picture more into the background and
Oh,
making it a little bit more.
yeah, that's a great idea.
But I really like the layout of it.
Yeah, this is looking really cool. It definitely reminds me of like those kind of movie documents you see where they got the stamp and all the layout and everything. So that's great.
Yeah.
Nice job, Fairy. We have a Woodward up next. Love these colors.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, this one I believe is yesterday's challenge where they're kind of doing this like sort of ghost figure running across the street here. There's some blurring effects, some texture effects. I really like the texture, kind of adds to that sort of worn photo. You got the little, it kind of looks like a disposable camera thing with the date down here. I think that's the effect. I will say, I think the blur works really well. I like the depth it adds, and it kind of does look like a more H photo, but it seems like there's a bit of a hard transition in the trees here with my mouse between blurred and in focus. I think if you kind of extended that blur to be more of a gradual transition, that might give it a little bit more of a natural feel to it. But overall, this looks great. The blur on the dog's looking really solid. We got Ralph 2. I really love these textures that
Yeah, I really like that.
it's kind of like a almost like stone or metal or corroded like bronze or something.
That's so cool. What filter did Ralph use for that?
Oh, what filter?
Yeah, I think he said behind it.
Oh, yeah. Information card. First time I've used the style transfer neural filter. So a little bit of neural filter usage.
I think that's awesome.
Yeah, it's a really cool style. I love the sort of look and texture of the wolf too. It's got this stylized kind of almost painted look to it, which is really neat. My only kind of critique would be to separate the text up here, the purple text. I think it has a nice color contrast between the sort of yellow background and the purple text, but the values seem very similar. I think it works pretty well with the lower text because the value is much darker than the background. Maybe increasing the contrast by boosting the darks on this text, darkening it down a bit, would give it a little stronger contrast. But yeah, this looks great. Super cool textures. Anastasia. Let's see. It says Old Mystic Stereoscopic Photo. Ooh, I like that.
Oh, that's cool. It's very mysterious, isn't it?
Yeah, it's kind of like some of the challenges I've been seeing with that sort of like monster rushing across the street. They almost have like a sort of Loch Ness photo, like this old aged kind of out of focus photo of this monster. Yeah, I like it. Very mysterious feel. And let's see, I think we'll check out like one more of these, one or two. Tanjid up next. Ooh, that's cool. Yeah, nice. Seems like there's a nice natural blur here.
Yeah.
Shifted upward. Just like the little glowing eyes in the trees.
Oh, I like them. Yeah, I really like those.
I like how they're like kind of varied. Like these ones are close together. These ones are far apart. Like it almost makes you wonder more like what exactly is going on. There's only one over here. So it's kind of this
That's cool.
bizarre. What is in those trees? And this is interesting because it looks like a horse photo that you use, but it's really neat how it's a sort of, it almost looks like there's a lot of motion blur going on around the feet. So it kind of gives it this sort of ethereal, creepy, blurred feel. Ghost horse. Yeah, that's awesome, Tanjid. Let's take a look at one more. There's some really cool colors and images going on here. Yeah, this is really neat. Sort of like sci-fi Halloween mix to it with the colors and the content.
Yeah, I like the depth of field in this and how there's a lot more in the foreground than the background as well.
Yeah, definitely. This little pop of color certainly stands out. It's sort of like, I'm not sure what that is, but this looks like this like container of sorts. Yeah, this is cool. It could almost be cool to see this green glow on the character in the foreground. I feel like the character in the foreground is almost supposed to be the focal point, but giving him a bit of glow or even separating him from the background a bit more. I feel like you could maybe brighten the background or add a little like kind of colored haze. Maybe even bring this pink purple tone back there a little bit to pop him out in terms of color. Just some things to think about, you know, if you want to kind of control where the eye is going, because the eye currently for me goes to this orange due to the color contrast and the green due to the color and value contrast.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, this looks great. Really cool effects. I love the colors in that. Yeah, the baby pod. Very interesting. Sci-fi Halloween, exactly. It's a genre I think we need to see more of. But yeah, this is a great place I think to jump back to Adam's work. And Adam, you have maybe a little less than 10 minutes more, so just whatever you want to kind of wrap up for today's stream.
Yeah.
Too short of mine? Leslie, I'll check it out later today. I'll make sure to give you some feedback on yours. Also, hello to Wade in the chat. What's going on, Wade? All right, so last you were working on the moon with this one?
Yeah, so I'm going to darken the moon a lot now just to kind of tie the whole shadows and the brightness together. So let's darken this down.
I really like the texture on that moon too.
Yeah, it's cool, isn't it?
It comes out a lot more, like once you darken it, it really seemed to push it.
Yeah, I'm going to darken it a lot more. So it's just kind of darken it where it needs to be, so around here as well. So as well as just the curves, what I like to do is add an overlay layer. And again, I'm going to make sure I'm painting it with a low opacity, probably about 10. And this is just where I start painting on the moon itself. Just around here.
Is this kind of something you use for sort of shadow effects with overlay?
Yeah, I use it to kind of create that shadow realness to it. So again, where it's dark here, I will be painting my own shadows in just to kind of blend it in.
Yeah, I think shadows are such a big thing for compositing. When I see a lot of people's work, it's like really fitting everything together in terms of lighting is such a huge part of the battle.
Yeah, definitely. And this is a case, again, it just needs to be darker too. So if I keep darkening it. But to me, this is where I play with layers, and I will just keep adding darkness to it until I feel like I'm happy with it.
Do you have any kind of go-to layer blending modes that you use all the time?
Yeah, I'd say screen and soft light would probably be my favorite ones.
Oh, interesting.
So screen, let me just show the other stock pictures that I'll be using. So let me grab them. So here. So this is just another stock picture that I got online. And with this, I wanted the stars from it. So I'm just going to copy it on over. I'm going to make sure as well that it's just on this layer here. So I will screen it on, and then I will just make it giant size to start with. And then this again is where I'm just going to have a little play around.
I love how quickly that kind of transforms the image, giving it some sort of background.
Yeah, I just feel like it adds so much to it. So if I do that there. And then because it's on screen, what I will probably do to this as well is darken it a lot. So I'm just going to bring the curves down. But because I know I want this dark, I'm not adding it as a new adjustment layer. I'm just going to do it on the original layer. And because I want it to be pretty dark, so that would be roughly, I'd say, where I want it. So I feel like that's already just made it like the context of the picture a lot more meaningful. So what I would usually do is I'd blur those as well, because they wouldn't necessarily be in focus. So I'm going to go to Gaussian blur. And with that, again, it's just playing around and seeing what I'm happy with. So okay with that. And then I've actually got a few more stock pictures actually. Let me drag them in.
Now, when you shot this photo, I think she had her hand on the wall, right, for the original one. Did you
Yeah.
have in mind specifically that she'd be kind of standing on the moon with her hand on it, and you
Yeah.
chose that for that reason?
Yeah, definitely. So I think with having a contact point, it just means that those shadows were naturally going to be there. And rather than kind of just fake the shadows and paint them on, it's a lot easier when you've got that contact point to kind of make it look like the model's actually touching something. Otherwise, it could just look like a hand's floating in the air.
Yeah.
So I will go in and add some more shadows afterwards. But for this, so I don't want the stars in this picture. I mainly just want this bit of cloud. So I'm going to put that over on the top. And again, I'm going to go with the blend mode. And if you just hover over, you can kind of see the effect that it has. It's loads of different effects. But again, it would be the screen mode that I would be using. So what I would do is I'd darken this, just like I did with the other one. Probably to about there-ish. But at the moment, I'm not too fussed about color being in it. So I probably will just desaturate that just a little bit, just so it's not so blue. Great. And because this picture is quite grainy, I guess, I'm going to blur this. And this is something that I do quite a lot, is to kind of add that depth. So I want this to be quite blurred in the foreground. Possibly to about there. And what I'll do then is I'll just lower the opacity of the whole layer. So I'll invert it and then just start brushing in the clouds again.
Is that just so you can kind of paint them in exactly in how much you want them to be there?
Yeah, it's because I didn't want as much of the clouds in it. So this way, at least I can kind of paint it over and then just kind of have a play around with it. And then another way that I kind of like to add smoke and kind of, I don't know, just some kind of mist in the photo would be, I normally just select a color. So I'll probably select one of these that's already here, maybe like a darkish kind of gray. And as long as it's on a low opacity brush, I will then just start by painting over the whole picture again. So let me up that slightly. Lovely. And I'll just bring the opacity of that down. But yeah, I'd say as the majority of the image, I'm pretty happy with that. So the next steps, what I would do is to color tone and just kind of bring it to a final piece. But I will go over that tomorrow as well, just to kind of show you guys how I use Lightroom to edit the colors of a picture.
Very nice. Yeah, that's great. So are you going to be working on the same image tomorrow?
Yeah, so I'm going to be doing the colors of the picture tomorrow, and then I've got a Harry Potter style picture. So I'm going to show how I bring in different stock pictures together.
Awesome. So come back tomorrow, everyone. If you want to see that, definitely check it out. Adam, once again, where can everyone find you online if they want to follow your work?
So if you want to find my most recent work, the best place is on Instagram, which is Adam Birdie, that's with 2 Y's. Or you can just check out my website, which is adambirdphotography.com.
Great. Well, Adam, thanks so much for joining us today. Looking forward to doing it again tomorrow. Huge thanks to everyone in chat for joining us as well. Stick around. We have more streams coming up. Huge thanks. And we will see you tomorrow with some more of Adam's work. Thanks, everybody. Have a good one.
Bye.